Now. Hi, Tommy, how are you?
Hi, doing well. How about yourself, Olivia?
Good, I'm great.
Awesome.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday to you too. How does
Thank
it feel to
you.
not have classes?
Sorry,
How does it feel to not have classes this week?
it's nice. Nice
Right,
break. Yeah, good to just not be in class today.
I feel that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll introduce myself. So my name is Olivia Jones, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am a fourth year communication studies student. I am from the Bay Area and I am in Polyreps, which is the official university ambassadors and tour guides of Cal Poly. So kind of representing the student perspective. But I also work for the Welcome Center and Cal Poly admissions. So I'm always here bringing you these Mustang Mondays about various topics. And just so you all know, if you're joining now, but you don't think you'll be able to watch this whole discussion, don't worry about it because we'll be posting them later on the Cal Poly Admissions Instagram account as well as our YouTube page. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name's Tommy Peterson. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am one of the career counselors over in Career Services. I specifically work on our freshman focus team. So all of our first year students, regardless of your major or even like the credits that you might be coming in with, because I know a lot of students have that question when you come in with so many units. But then a little bit about me. I grew up actually across the country on the East Coast, about an hour south of DC in Southern Maryland. So have made the transition to the West Coast. What is it, a little over 2 years ago now. So super excited in being here on the Central Coast, and then did my undergraduate work in Orlando, Florida, and then my master's work most recently in North Carolina.
Awesome. That's so cool. I'm sure it was interesting to see the differences between coast to coast.
Oh, so different because I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic, right on the Chesapeake Bay, and so seeing that and then seeing the beaches that we have here, so vastly different.
Right. Also, do we still have two other people joining us?
I think we might have one joining, but I'm not confident about.
Okay, is it Wendy?
It would be Maddie if she's going to come.
Matt.
Maddie's unable to unmake it, unfortunately, now.
Okay, I don't have a request from her,
Okay.
but I'm sure she'll make herself known somehow. If not, no worries, we can just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to add a little comment so that people know that they can use the question function. If any of you at any point have any questions for me or Tommy, then definitely use this.
Awesome.
Sorry, I thought I copied it, but it didn't work.
Oh no, you're good. Technology and me sometimes it takes it even a year, like although I guess it's almost maybe 2 years now coming up on it, like now being like ingrained with the virtualness. Still
Right.
sometimes not as easy as you think.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so you work in career services, correct?
Yes, I do. Yeah. There actually just almost a year. I'll hit a year in January. So I transitioned literally the Monday after the holiday and the new year and the start of winter quarter 2021. So this is actually my very first fall experience. I know everyone for a lot of first years and second years, this was their first fall on campus. It was the same for me. I'm still getting lost. At on campus, trying to find them to do classroom presentations, but super excited to finally be in person after being fully virtual for the first like 6 months.
Right, I'm sure it's definitely a lot nicer to see people face to face. So,
Absolutely.
what kind of things does career services offer? What should people expect if they want to visit or use it as a resource?
Yeah, we do a lot of different things that are kind of more like people facing, but also to have a lot of things that are done virtually that students can find through our websites. And what's really cool about it is we kind of meet students wherever they are. Kind of sometimes there are students where it's like, oh, I see you at like this event. They'll see us during slow days, which is going to be orientation. Cool, like myself and my colleagues to present to all the first year students as part of it. But a lot of what I do on my team for the freshman focus team, there's 3 dedicated counselors for all first year students because you might know this more than I do. I think there's like over 5,500. There's a lot of first year students.
Yeah.
So working with all of them, and then after their first year, they have a specialist. So some students will come in with like specific questions. A lot of it knowing that Cal Poly is unique where you had to come in with a major. And around midterm season, there were a lot of students saying, maybe I don't love this as much as I thought, or I didn't potentially put the thought and intentionality I want to behind it. And so they're having that question from an academic side, but also that career side of what do I want to major in? What do I want to study? So we do a lot of different things, but sometimes it's just working with a student. And I've had a lot of students come in appointments and say, I just want to know what the range of resources are. And so we do a lot of really great counseling skill set questions where we're going to be pulling to say, is it maybe major exploration, career exploration, knowing all the resources we have? Like there's a really cool one that I love to show students to say what Cal Poly students specifically have done post-graduation, because we pull that data every year and ask that information of all of our graduates. They're like, I had no idea this lived here. And so sometimes just going to our website and seeing what's most helpful for them, but we do a lot of different workshops, presentations. So if students have those questions, definitely knowing we're always looking for new and innovative ways to partners with students as well. So we also welcome the feedback too, knowing that especially this year, we were trying to gauge, was it more virtual? Was it more in person? What did that look like for them? And just kind of too, like the standard things that people know career services for. There's always going to be career fairs because want to make sure you get connected to employers. And I think we were actually one of the only universities in the state of California to host them in person this year. So we got a lot of really positive feedback from students as well as our employers to host that, knowing that a lot of them are still doing it virtually and we were able to host it in a safe manner.
Yeah, all of those are incredible resources. I know that I was kind of struggling with picking a major coming into Cal Poly. And so I'm communications, and I looked up the kind of just the vast range of careers that people go into through my major. And I think it just kind of gives you comfort that, it might not be the perfect fit for you right now, but you could definitely end up going into the specific career that you think that you want to go into, even if it's not super related to what you're learning in undergrad.
No, I love you sharing that because that's where a lot of students have that fixed mindset where they're just like, oh, I can only go into like if I'm, a communications major, I can only go into this one field where a lot of them somehow think it's only like PR.
Yeah.
It's a huge aspect of it, no doubt, but there are a myriad of things you can do. And so it's saying maybe you can't change into like the super specific major you want to change into, knowing it's never guaranteed. But how can we still talk about what opportunities organizations to get involved in, and then ultimately translating those skills to the specific thing you want to do post-graduation. And that's, I think, instilling that confidence because there's that fear of like, oh, I don't know, it's not the right degree to do that. But knowing, I tell a lot of students, you read a job description, it says like X degree or related. So long as you have something in there, let's talk about your experiences too, because on your resume, your major is part of one line. What's the rest that we're going to talk about within it? So certainly we want you to hopefully study something you're interested in, but knowing too it's not going to dissuade all the great opportunities post-graduation either.
Right. And Cal Poly has so many, career related organizations that you can join, or just interest based things that will help kind of give you a boost on your resume. Do you have any resume workshops or LinkedIn workshops or anything like that you offer?
We do all of those. Yeah, I actually just hosted I think we called it, Writing Effective Resumes and Cover Letters. I did that in person on, this past Monday. So not today, but a week ago. And then we also do a LinkedIn workshop, but we also talk about a very unique opportunity for our students as well. It's called Cal Poly Career Connections. So a lot of students might use LinkedIn to maybe find Cal Poly alumni in companies, organizations they're interested in. Career Connections, it's a very similar thought process to that alumni link. It's just an opt-in system. So when I'm going with students on LinkedIn and we look up alumni and they're kind of taken aback, there's like, oh, there's 160,000 people on here. It's a lot to parse through, and certainly using the filters, but understanding the people who are on LinkedIn, their motivations for being there. Hopefully they would want to connect with you as a student, but knowing Career Connections, it's that opt-in system where alumni are saying, I want to network, I want to mentor undergraduate students. So it's another really great option that hasn't really been around super long. I think we've been using it for 2 or 3 years. So it's a little bit smaller of a number. I think we have maybe like 4,200 alumni on there. But knowing that those individuals, we typically see a higher response back from students who are trying to maybe do informational interviews, learn about fields, career exploration. And the one super cool thing that I love about it is that they also have like templates when you're reaching out to a professional. Because when I talk to, especially my first years, there's that concern of, I don't want to sound stupid, I don't want to sound dumb. And certainly I hope that professionals can recognize that when you're asking for the opportunity to learn, they're not going to look at you saying, oh, you're not worthy enough for this, or you sound stupid. But I think some of those templates can be really helpful to hopefully articulate in a concise manner to that person what you want to do. Because also I know sometimes students will over explain, it'll be super long, and no one reads long emails. We all know that. So them to get connected because we want to make sure that we know about them. Like when I talk to some of my first years, in classroom presentations, a lot of faculty will invite us in, and it will just be naming our resources to be like, depending upon where you look, what's going to be most important is going to differ from student to student. It might be just looking at some career fields within like the occupational outlook handbook. It might be connecting with someone or just understanding, like I've walked through when students want to change their major, the catalog. By no means am I like an advisor to be like, oh, take math 152 and 143. But when we think about the majors, what's exciting to us? When we look a little bit deeper into the course like descriptions, is this something that's in line with what we call your VIPs, which is values, interest, personality, strength, to kind of be that guidepost of how you're going to make all those other decisions.
Right. I mean, the catalog is just such a simple thing, but
Mhm.
if you think about it and you're applying, you don't know what you want to do, that's kind of the first place you should look and think, right, this is what I'm actually going to be taking. So you might think you have an idea of what a major or kind of college looks like, but if you don't look at the classes, then you won't have a super good grasp. So definitely recommend doing that if you are, which the application is coming up very soon. So prospective students is exciting. Do you have any recommendations for, I mean, you work with first years, so when do you think that everyone should come into career services, or is it kind of specific questions? Other than people looking to kind of change their majors, what are the most commonly asked questions that you get?
I think a lot of students are also really eager to see if it's very interesting, like the turn of phrase a lot of them will use. It's like, I want to be the student who gets an internship after their first year. Because I think there's a lot of misnomers out in the world that internships are not meant for students after their first year of college.
Right.
And certainly there are a lot of programs that will only accept rising juniors and seniors, but it doesn't mean that it is not a possibility at all. But a lot of students say, I want to, be that person who gets it. And then we'll talk through some of those like mechanical things where it's like, okay, let's make sure your resume and cover letter together, but also how are you intentionally searching?
Mhm.
Some be like, I'm going to apply to, and throw my resume out to hundreds of applications, but we know that that's not intentional. And therefore, when, companies, organizations are seeing it, they're not going to feel, special. And certainly there's this concept of, yes, you're only there for an internship, but at the same time, when you're applying in a candidate pool of so many other people, how are they going to know that you truly are invested in their organization? Because that was a huge concept we were talking about in my cover letter workshop last Monday, was that first paragraph. Why are you applying to this position? We know you're applying to more than one. You should be. But what did that stand out for you in those conversations for doing that? So definitely working through that. And a lot of the fear and trepidation that students have when potentially it might then be, okay, interviewing, where there's this imposter syndrome of, I'm not supposed to be there, this isn't the right place for me. But to understand too, what I tell students, if you've gotten the interview, they see something special in you. And ultimately too, no one wants to sit through a bad interview. Like that's where students say like, oh, they think that I'm going to fail, and no one wants that going into it. So kind of switching that mindset and that framework of saying, I'm in this interview for a reason. How can I showcase my skills in the best way? And ultimately, too, if you're not selected, it does not mean inherently that you are not good enough. Because I work with a lot of students too, where they've maybe interviewed or applied to something, and then it's like, oh, it's me, I'm the problem. And it might just be, okay, maybe we need to rephrase the way we say something so it can be more impactful in an interview. Because ultimately, does anyone truly know you after 30 minutes? No. But do they know enough to where they think you can do the job? Hopefully. And then some students will just say, is there anything I should be doing? And I think that there's this very like ingrained idea in a lot of students, understanding a lot of students from Cal Poly are super high achieving to
Mhm.
say I'm supposed to be doing all these things. And especially when they get to a campus as large as R, they start that social comparison of, oh, I see person who's in this internship, in this club, doing all of this, and I'm just going to classes. And I remember I had a very honest conversation with one of my first years where they're like, so I need to get an internship this summer. And that was the phrase they used. And I said, can you tell me like where this term need comes from for you? It's like, that's what I'm supposed to do. It's like, who told you this? It's like, the world. I was like, no. I was like, it is 100% valid, especially knowing this year, people are really like emotionally spent and burnt out. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, perfectly valid if you want to go where you consider home and rest. Because ultimately, too, I talk to a lot of students and we just do like checking in and rapport building in the beginning of our conversations. In the quarter system is really abrupt for a lot of those students. That's the like most common thing we talk about before we get into career stuff of how fast paced it is. If you want to give yourself that time and space the summer after your first year to take a break and to like recharge yourself and ultimately come back super strong in the fall, there is nothing wrong with that because some people think, oh, it's a wasted summer. I was like, do you want me to tell your mother? Because they were talking about conversations with their mom. I was like, your career counselor said it is okay that you don't have to do something. Certainly, mom probably wants him like outside of the house in the day and not home. But ultimately, knowing too, there were so many things that you could be doing. Is it doing informational interviews in the summer and learning more about your field, where certainly it might not be something on your resume, but it's still really valuable. And so that's a big workshop we do typically in winter and spring to say how do we make the most opportunity of it for students who want to find those impactful experiences, but also to say it doesn't have to be an internship. Because certainly there's so many different things. Like I always reference our slow days leaders because I can only imagine like the amount of like experiences that they had gained from that since I was never an orientation leader. But when we break down the skills that they're learning, it is not an internship, but that experience is so impactful. And I encourage students to also think, what is the opportunity you're looking for in an internship? And a lot of them just look at it as a title. And I really encourage them to think about it from that skill set lens, because that's ultimately what they're going to articulate when they're trying to find that first position post graduation. So you were an intern, but what did you do? And also, how are you going to describe it on that resume to get to that interview stage? So a lot of students have those sort of big questions, you know, where they're thinking. And so it's sometimes just like mitigating expectations for them too, of saying, you don't have to be doing all these things. If you do intrinsically want to do them, how do we set you up for success, give you the opportunities? But recognizing this year specifically is so challenging for a lot of people to navigate. Oh, I got to be like in person, you know, and figure out where things are on campus, you know, and a lot of the first years I talked to, like living with a person that is not within their immediate family. Like there's just a lot that's going on for people. And then to put this pressure upon themselves to do it all because that's what they also determine as successful. And so a lot of times I also work with students to unpack what does success look like for them and thinking about the life they want to create. Knowing career is probably going to be a big piece of it because it's going to be that source of funding. It's where you spend a lot of time during your waking hours. But I'm the person who also, even as a career counselor, I demystify this idea of a dream job. When I dream, it is not about working. And I kind of want to also instill that in the students I work with as well to say, certainly, hopefully you can be excited about it, but it doesn't have to be sort of like this life's blood.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird working in the field I do where a lot of people have that mentality. And I like what I do. I love working with students, but I don't want students to feel as though they're not being fulfilled in other aspects in their life, because that's what I talk to a lot of them now as well. We see this great resignation, and so many people are leaving because they're not in line with their VIP. So we really try to spend a lot of intentional time exploring those, because a lot of our students think very linearly about their job progress.
Yeah, 100%. That's such good advice. And I personally didn't get an internship until this past summer, and I'm a senior. So I took the first summer to, just make some money because, it's expensive to be a college student. And
Absolutely.
I took a summer off because of COVID. I wanted to kind of protect myself, I guess, and just it was a hard time. And then the past year, I worked at the Cal Poly Welcome Center, and that was awesome. Working in admissions has built so many good skills and just regular people skills. And then I also had an internship for a marketing company that I found literally just through emailing someone and seeing they were offering internships. So there's so many different paths that you can take. And I'm starting to get that comparison fear of people that have already signed full-time job offers after graduation and that had this mega internship over last summer and that was just it for them. So I definitely think that there's some resources like Cal Poly Career Connections that
Mhm.
I honestly forgot about since freshman year, and should definitely utilize because, you know, the connections and the alumni that Cal Poly builds, I think definitely makes you just kind of more passionate about it and wanting to connect with students so that you can hopefully give them the chance that you had. So yeah, like you said, it's good to have those real conversations about what you think you want and what you actually are going to end up doing.
Yeah. And I also talk to students too about the reality because certainly there's been a lot of change in regards to COVID. Like we ask a lot of students in our conversation about values, and there is this concept of stability. But I also introduce to them from the research perspective, people go through a lot of different job transitions, and that's okay. And a lot of students, if their parents are, in the boomer generation or above, they were in positions for like 20, 30 years. That typically isn't the case for a lot of students from like today's job market and the world and understanding how fast it's changing and that's okay. Ultimately, it's that fear of I've only seen it done this way. Can it be done elsewhere? And knowing that certainly the skills that we're teaching them now and that we also support alumni as well too, to be able to have those skills to say, I'm going to find my first job post graduation. And maybe if it's not right for me, I can still utilize what I learned from career services to make that next transition for myself as well too. Because that's hopefully going to help them say, all right, because we don't want them to start fearful at ground one to say, oh my gosh, what does it look like? But hopefully they're like, I remember Tommy talking about like resumes and cover letters. And then I'm going to be doing a workshop in the winter quarter about interviewing, but we always do those quarter those same sort of what we consider to be our signature topics. But we as counselors get to switch around so we don't talk about the same thing all the time. But definitely knowing that there is a lot of fear about like the unknown in the future. And so we really work with our students, even though I myself am not working with our seniors, but our college specialists. So we have a dedicated counselor for each of the 6 colleges, really work with those students to help them figure out, is it grad school that's right for me? Because I've talked to some students when we were looking for a current counselor for science and math to say, I think I should go to grad school because I don't know what I want to do and I just want to bide more time, or some students to say, I need to go to grad school now because I know I want to and I know I will never go back if I work and get out of that school mentality. So really figuring out what's most important for them. And I love how you talked about like in your own journey as well, like the big question of money, because that's a huge thing where we're not going to know about that because that was a piece for me. I never had an internship until grad school even, because for me, when I was an undergrad student, I worked as an RA to be able to afford to like live there and go to school. And I also graduated a year and a half early because of the credits I came in with. So that way also I could offset the cost of my education because I knew I wanted to continue on too. So it's a very big thing, especially for a lot of our students. Like I also teach in the CP Scholars Program for Univ 100. So talking about what it means to come from like low income first generation college students where you might not have what we consider like that college knowledge, but to think about too, what are those other factors? Because oftentimes a lot of people will say, oh, just go get an unpaid internship.
Right.
People, might not have the capability to not be paid for their work and to knowing the privilege that it takes to be able to go and partake in those opportunities. So really recognizing and working individualistically, because that's what I love to do. We also in career services have dedicated staff members for different diversity groups on campus. So I specifically work with our Pride Center as well as the Dream Center to support those students understanding that they're going to have different intersectional needs to support them in their career development. So working one-on-one with dreamers or students without DACA to be able to talk about what does it look like in finding, a company where I can actually, find a position and be supported. And then from the Pride Center of where they can holistically be taken care of in a workspace and ultimately do a lot of that assessment on the front end to say, is this workspace affirming for who I am and wanting to be able to show up there authentically every day?
Yeah, that's awesome. I think so often there's a kind of blanket way of looking at things in terms of career services, especially at a place that can be so homogenous like Cal Poly. So
Mm-hmm.
finding those, recognizing that not everybody's journey through, higher education and their career path is going to be the same. So I'm glad that you are a resource for those specific opportunities. It's also, I mean, I did an unpaid internship, but then I have to subsidize it with working and
Mhm.
making as well, to support myself through that way. And we also have to be, with the times, adaptable. I mean, I did an online interview where it was a camera and then the question just came. So I wasn't being asked by someone.
So
And
on.
it's so awkward and you're never prepared for things like that. So I think definitely, I'm sure you could talk through these kind of things that potentially could happen, with the way that companies are working these days. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, we definitely work with students a lot of things, and that's the piece too. I share with them, when I finished my master's program, I applied to like 30 schools. I still went home and like cried after interviews and whatnot because
Yeah.
though I was doing career counseling in grad school and doing that, it's so real and it's so powerful in the moment and recognizing that we all go through those things. And so to understand when they have those fears of like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous for an interview, what are the skills that are going to help them feel and emote that confidence to know that with that too as well because I am a human. I have those feelings and I'm like, I want to make sure I show my best. And so knowing that we support you through that and that we're not these sort of automatons, because a lot of students also think that you go to career services, you're going to get your resume, and then I know that they host career fairs and that's where I'm going to go to find someone. But we really like to take it from that holistic approach to recognize we want you to be happy and successful in the way that you specifically define it, because certainly 50 different people in your given major, everyone's going to have a different definition in what's going to make them happy and successful in the opportunities they're going to take post graduation.
Yeah, definitely. So we have to finish up in a couple of minutes, but do you have any sort of last minute advice for prospective students, maybe that are filling out the application right now, or, just wondering if they should apply to Cal Poly and what kind of steps they should take in that general sense?
Absolutely. So I know that there's a lot of concerns for students when you're specifically applying to Cal Poly because you have to select that major and whatnot. But knowing that it is possible to change your major. We in Slow Days, there's this really lovely video where we have a couple students that have graduated talk about it. There's one student, it's a great tagline. It's like, so 4 years, I think like 5 different majors, all for one degree because he hopped around. The one thing he didn't do, though, connect with career services. So, yes, it's understanding that what you're starting with could be what you end up with, and what you graduate with, but that we can help you make meaning of it for what you want to do post graduation. Because I know sometimes students will say, oh, yeah, I didn't really think about my major when I applied to Cal Poly because I never thought I was going to get in. A, just like a job, apply. Certainly, there's that financial ramification of if you can afford the opportunity to pay the application fee, but never self-select yourself out of a process. That's something I talk to so many students where they're like, I don't know if I'm qualified or not for this position. The worst thing you're going to do is spend maybe 30 minutes to an hour reworking your cover letter resume. But if it's something you're interested in and you're interested in applying to Cal Poly, just like a job we're going to hopefully talk about in the future for you, apply to it. And then you have the power to say no once you have that opportunity of an acceptance letter or an offer letter. So I wish you all the best of luck in the process because absolutely picking the university where you're going to feel supported and affirmed, we want to make sure that you do that best for you. So I encourage you, similarly to what we always talk about in career services, that research. But what research is going to be most important? Do you want to talk to a current student? Do you want to read our reports? Do you want to connect with professionals? Like all of us are in the directory and our emails are there too, and having chats with you to feel comfortable, making sure that this is going to be the right space and place for you. So definitely encouraging that research as well too.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. And I have plugged the Cal Poly Career Services Instagram. I believe that's correct.
Yes.
Awesome. So you can follow that. You have a great website with all of the resources that you offer. So definitely good to check that out. And then, like I said earlier, we are here every Monday doing Mustang Mondays. So, fun little talks. Next Monday is a last minute FAQs about your application. So, if you have any last minute questions or struggles with the application, then definitely check that out. And yeah, definitely watch our videos and use these resources that we talked about. If you want to refer back to this video, it will be posted on our YouTube and Instagram page. But thank you so much for meeting with me, Tommy. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, it was great talking with you as well, Olivia.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah, have a great
Okay,
rest of
bye everyone.
Hey there, my name's Rafael. I'm a fourth year journalism transfer student with a minor in Spanish, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Thank you for watching the video. Please share any questions or comments you have down below in the comments section. Click here to subscribe, and to watch more videos, click here. If you want to sign up for a campus visit, we're offering in-person and virtual options, so check out our website. Link in the description. Thank you for watching.